YouTube, and welcome to the Blue Corner and to a Cardfight deck profile. This is going to be an update to Nectar with the new Fighters Collection stuff, although I decided to spice up a little bit and give you guys just a drastically different build. Normally what I would be playing is the Asha Sunflower build, and if you want to know how I would update that for Fighters Collection, just swap out the old heals for the new ones and cut Primavera for a Generation Break 8 if you really want to, although you probably don't need the GB8 in that deck, but instead I just wanted to build a different Nectar list, particularly one that won't end friendships like that one does. So instead we're just going to be using some of the cards that I just haven't really featured on here, such as Selfina, in addition to the trial deck cards, the starter here, and such forth. So this is a more casual Nectar list, and I'm curious to see what we're going to get out of set 12 for the clan, because so far nothing revealed for Bloom has... I don't think there actually has been any Bloom stuff revealed. It's just been Maiden ofs, and it's not good Maiden of stuff either. So that being said, let's get started. So for the Forerunner, I'm running the trial deck card, which is Augury Maiden Ida. Ida has two skills. First one is Counterblast 1, Generation Break 1, put it into the soul. Choose a unit from your drop zone and put it at the bottom of your deck. If the unit shows up this effect has the Bloom ability, you may also draw a card. So it just reloads your deck with cards in case they got popped or something along those lines. And another skill is you can rest her to choose two of your units, and for this turn they'll be regarded as having each other's name. And basically what this does is it allows you to cheat certain Bloom effects off. Combination, for instance, would be if you say have one of these in play and you have one of these in play and use a skill, this is now treated as Noel and Ines, and then this Ines is treated as Ines and Noel. So now whenever you call a Noel or an Ines in, both of them will bloom, because the way Bloom works is whenever you call a unit with the same name as this card, they trigger. So yeah, pretty straightforward in that regard. She'll bloom for both Noel and if another Ines is in play, and this will bloom if another Noel or an Ines gets put in play. And there's a silly loop involving the starter card and Noel and the stand, but I'm not really going to go into it here, as personally I feel like the loop is BM and it loses really hard to hand trap G Guardians, which I imagine by the time you even go for this thing, at least if you're up against Gears, Kagero, or Sweep Command, they'll do that very same thing. So that's that. Then for the grade 3s, we have the 4 Ranunculus Assyrian card Asha. Pretty straightforward. She's your best one for the ideal grade 3s. And then for the backups, I'm running 3 Ines because I don't like running 7 Ashas in this list. I'd rather run a backup grade 3 that has an on-field Bloom skill. So we're going with this one, as her ability, if you don't remember, is when she blooms, you can choose up to 5 Ines, and they all get the ability of, at the end of the turn, bot deck this card to look at the top 5 cards of your deck for a Bloom unit and add to your hand. We've got some more Bloom cards to work with than before, so she can definitely net you some things. More importantly, she's something you can call and then get out of dodge against control matchups. And her on-ride skill is Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, look at the top 5 for a Bloom card, so she might actually hit Asha because this is an Asha with Bloom, which was an issue before. And then for the grade 2s, we have 4 Thuria, 4 Noel. I do need to note that since this build doesn't draw nearly as much as the Sun Maiden build, you got to be very careful in using this effect, as you just don't build up a hand as often as you do with the other one. So try to save Noel for finisher plays, and then since we're not playing the Merjuka Rani list, we're now playing for this list I'm playing, man, this one's always hard to pronounce. Let me just read this up here. Osmanthus, Maiden, and Nelma. There we go. So Nelma's from the child deck, and her skill is when another copy of herself is put into play, choose up to 3 units, they get 2000 power, and for the rest of this turn she gets boost if you control a Ranunculus Vanguard. So 2 parts there. So if you don't have a Ranunculus Vanguard, all she does is just give out 3 2k buffs, but if you have a Ranunculus Vanguard, she gets the boost ability. So if you absolutely have to, you can stride into any of your Asha strides in order to get that boost effect off. She's basically a green shot elf, except the buffs aren't nearly as predominant, but she can give them to anything. So you can just simply call her to the back and then you can call a Thuria down in front of, say, a booster, and she can give Thuria a 2000 buff so that it's a minimum 16 line or something along those lines. She can give herself a buff so she's an 11k booster, and you can just throw anything up at the front like a crit trigger, and there you got it. You're swinging for 15. She's like the one card you want to keep in play as often as possible, just so you can just keep blooming her. It's a really useful unit, and since she has the ability to give anything 2k buffs, you can also call her down during your opponent's turn to trigger her bloom abilities and thus give your Vanguard some defensive play. And for the ones, it's the same as before. 4 perfect guards with the 4 Flower Keeper Dragon perfect guards, 4 Stride Fodders, 4 Odettes, and since I'm only playing 7 grade 3s and 1 starter, I was able to put Maiden Sweetberry into the deck, as this card's always been useful in bloom strategies. And then for the triggers, we're running same as before: 4 of the busted stand trigger, 4 of the not as busted stand trigger, 4 Asha crits so that they cannot safely no guard my Vanguard attacks, and then 4 of the new heal. So when this guy is discarded to call the Fighter Selection G Guardian, you can take any normal unit from your drop zone and put it on the line of your deck. So it just, again, reloads your deck in case you need to get combo pieces back in for blooming. And then for the G zone, so running 3 copies of Governing Flower Princess Selfina. So Selfina's skill is Counterblast 1, flip anything in your G zone. You choose units up to the number of face-up cards in your G zone, and they get 2000 power. In addition to that, for every face-up copy of Selfina in your G zone, you clone one of those units. If the number of cards called by this effect is 2 or more, she gets a crit. So, as I've mentioned before, I've long felt that this card was inferior to Verano, as power buffs and a crit are nice, but Verano cycles cards back in the deck, and she also gives you boosters to work with. So I feel like Verano will ultimately give you bigger power lines, but Selfina's not awful. Honestly, this could have come out in set 8 and it would have been a really great card for the time. Maybe? No, we had Verano back then. Unfortunately, the case is this card will always be competing with Verano, which I feel is just the better stride. But for the purpose of this profile, I just wanted to throw it in here, see how it was. Like I said before, it's an okay card, it's just Verano's just better. So I'll be cutting these for those, definitely. Then we have the Asha package. I'm still rocking the 2 Invernos because I still have to deal with removal matchups on a routine basis. And then 1 copy of the Generation Break 8. So this card's skill is when she attacks a Vanguard at GB8, you can choose 3 normal units from your drop zone, shuffle them to the deck, and then you choose one of your rear guards, and then you can call up to 3 copies of that card into play. And for each card called as effect, the called cards plus the Vanguard each gain an additional 10,000 power. So you can get a maximum of 30k to all 4 of these units when you do this play, and then you shuffle your deck. So she's basically a Primavera that comes out a lot later, but has a much more manageable costs of no counterblasts and only just needing 3 normal units in the drop zone. So it's okay, I guess. I haven't really found myself needing to go into the GB8 because I feel like the game plan for this deck is going to be Selfina, and then likely Glorious Bloom. And if your opponent's somehow alive after that, then I guess you GB8. But you've also got Inverno too. Like, she's also a bit of a kill play. So I honestly don't know how I feel about the GB8. I wouldn't be surprised if I cut this thing entirely, especially when we get our new card in set 12 that will hopefully be generic, because then it'll be an easy take this out and probably take out 1 other card from the G zone in order to make room for it, because I imagine whatever we're getting in the new set's going to be a Persona flip. And once a breeze. Then for the G Guardians, 2 copies of Rain Breath Dragon, and then 1 copy of, I can't read this upside down. Okay, Flower Princess of Cherry Costarina. So, for all intents and purposes, this is a Rain Breath Dragon that G-flips. So, skill is, when it's placed on guard circle, you counterblast 1, flip any G Guardian face up, and it gets an immediate 5,000 shield, Then you can call a unit from your hand to rearguard, and if you have 2 units with the same name as that card, she gets an additional 10,000 shield. So, at minimum, she's a Rain Breath Dragon. At best, though, she is a Marlena, which is why I cut her. As yes, this costs Counterblasts, but it's basically easier to fulfill Marlena. And then we've put Verno back in for the situations where I need more than 15k shield. She can get me 20k shield. And then one Dismal to protect my guys from certain attacks. Maybe even VMAX. Not that I have to worry about that. I'm the only Narukami player around here. And that's it for the deck itself. So, like I said before, I feel that this list isn't as powerful as the Marjuka Ronnie build. So if I were to play Neo Nectar seriously, that would be the one I go with. But I wanted to just do something a little bit different from just like, hey, here's my list. Here's everything that was before, but I only changed like 4 things, and that's the heal triggers. Yeah. So, as for what you can expect at some point, I'm going to be waiting until Code of the Duelist comes out for Yu-Gi-Oh! Before I grab all the cards I need to update Grand Blue. Admittedly, I also want to wait for Ocean Depths Dwelling Zombie Whale to come out over here. He's a promo for Shop Leagues, and I'm pretty certain we'll be able to get those through eBay at some point. So it'll be a while yet before I have Night Rose updated, and I don't want to do a Gear Chronicle or Genesis deck updates until the new set comes out, which will be pretty much at the beginning of September. Man, they picked a really long time to release set 11. But no, gotta sell them Bermuda Triangles. Anyway, so basically, there's no foreseeable Vanguard deck profiles for the future, so for the next while, if I do any Vanguard content, it's going to be Cardfight area related stuff and like discussion videos, market watches, what have you. In fact, I kind of should do one of those. Although by the time this video is up, I've probably done one already, so if you haven't already, check that out. And yeah, that's it. Until next time, this is BlueStar899, jacking out.